Hello YouTube, this is Intemper Designs bringing to you a signature video tutorial, and it's going to be based on the style I've been messing around with called stained glass. It's based on these three signatures, which will be available for download as well as the signature I'm going to be creating in this video. Alright, so to get started, we got to open up a new canvas. Also, I'm hoping to make this beginner friendly, so be expecting this to be a little lengthy. I'm going to be explaining the shortcuts, the layer adjustments that I use. Going to try to make it as detailed as possible. So under presets, you're just going to have use paper and below. And me, I've created some custom presets. I have one that's signature 1, and all it is, it's 480 by 240, and resolution should be 70. It doesn't make a difference when your dimensions are set to pixels, but it does make a difference when your dimensions are set to inches. So I do recommend using this if you are just starting out, and also if you're not going to be following the final step to this, which is where we're going to be printing our signature as a business card size so that you can keep it in your wallet. So for the sake of that step, we're going to be doing inches, 3.5 width, height 2, and resolution 300. And of course you got to name it, because you're going to be saving this somewhere on your desktop and you want to be able to recognize it when you look for it later, in case that comes up. So let's see, stained glass example. So this is actually pretty big, a canvas. Signatures are meant to be pretty small, so that way they can fit the image restrictions on forums, and then you could wear them in your signature. But as you can see, it's almost wallpaper size. Well, anyways, just gonna drag the render onto the canvas, and gonna use the Lasso Tool to trace around the logo and delete it so it will not interfere with our signature. Would also like to give credit to the render cutter, Paint Train. Found this on a rendering site that I'll be providing in the description below. Let's see. Right now I'm deciding whether or not if I want to shrink it. That way it doesn't take too much space of the canvas. All I did is I hit Control T. For Apple users, it's Command T, and I'm holding Shift. Meanwhile, dragging on the top right here. And what that does is it keeps the ratio locked, so that way it doesn't become too long or too wide and create or distort your render. Distort, yeah. You know what I mean. Alright, so first step can be created using any stock. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to be using some Photoshop defaults to create it. So you're just going to go over here to the gradient tool and going to select on the gradient, and going to choose some red hues. So this is going to be two colors that are consistent in your stock choice or your render choice, as you can see, there's a lot of red. And I would like to see red be in the foreground and in the background, but not as the main background component. So a little planning is going to be involved in this color decision. You'll see in a little while what we're going to be making with it, and based on that, you can decide what colors you'll use for this step. So we'll move on. So gotta choose radio, which is just in this section here, and it's just, you know, the circle one right there. Set it to normal because I had it changed to something else. Alright, and I'm gonna unselect the render. That way I can get a better look at this. Now I'm gonna set it to multiply, and you'll do this to it. So all I suggest to keep in mind is your values. You know, you want to get alternation between lights and darks. So right now it's very dark, so I'm going to go back to the lighten blending adjustment layer, or mode I should say. Whoa, it's a little overpowering. All I hit is Control Alt Z to go back a couple steps, and gonna select on the, let's see, what am I gonna do? I am gonna select that right there, and this is the transparent gradient. It should be right here in your presets, unless you've deleted it. Alright, so now we're going to go to filter. If you're using CS 5.5 or below, I think is what it is, there's going to be one called texture or stylize, and you'll find a filter called stained glass. However, I'm using CS 6.6, so I'm going to go to filter gallery, then under texture, I'm going to choose stained glass, and we're going to mess with this until we get something that we like. Alright, next we're going to use the Lasso Tool, and I don't really have a method for this. I just like to like randomly create a wavy shape in form of a U. So like, whoa, hold on. So like a U like that. So just wavy shape. And oh, hold on, Control Z. So right now what we did is the outline is what's going to be selected. But if we hit delete, it deletes what we selected, and what we want is what we actually want what's inside. So in order to get that, we hit Control Shift I, and it flips the selection. So you'll see that once I hit backspace, that is all that's remaining. Alright, the next step will be to go to Filter, Distort, then Wave. And these are the parameters I'm using. So if you've messed with this before, it's going to be different because this is default. I haven't messed with it. And all I'm going to be doing is hitting randomize a couple times until I get something that I think is interesting. Yeah, that looks cool. Okay, so I'm going to actually separate this layer into two pieces. That way I can have more control over it for the next step. So again, I'm going to use the Lasso Tool. And I'm going to split it down the middle. And then here's another command. When you have a selection highlighted, when you hit Control J, which is the command to duplicate a layer, it'll separate that selection from the layer that it was on before. So here's an example. Control J. And you know, there it is. Oh, hold on. So there it is independently. However, it's still remaining on the original layer. We kind of wanted it separated, so got to go back and delete it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Control J a lot. So just want you to know that that's the command for duplicating layers, like I went over a little. And we're going to do Control T a lot. And what that does is it creates a transform box around your image, which you can then shrink it depending on which corner you get, and hold Shift to, you know, make sure that it's the same ratio. And then if you have your cursor around the corner or outside of the box, you can rotate it. And we're going to be doing this to manipulate these layers so that we can create a composition with them to create an interesting background using these layers. So all right, let me take a look at this. Kind of getting a feel for the direction that the stock has itself. And let me just grab a brush to show you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this right here. So this is a direction. And then the positioning of her shoulder. So these are directions that we can use. So we kind of want this background to create the same direction. All right. Yeah, that's good. So we're gonna do something like that. Okay. So I'm gonna grab this here. Make sure it's curving in that manner. As you can see, it's kind of curving like the direction of her arm here. And then this one, Control T, rotate. Is going this direction. Now Control J. Control T, so it's doesn't look like an obvious duplicate. Can rotate it. Now you can see that it's going this direction. So you just gotta mess with it until you find a composition that you like. So right now I'm just taking some time to really look at it, decide if I want to add more. Alright, I say for now that's good enough. However, there isn't really much in the foreground, and you can obviously see where the render ends. There's like this abrupt line. So we're going to add some in the foreground. And this will help later too to create depth. So it's like she's in an actual environment where there is foreground elements and background elements. Actually, I don't want to use that one again. I want to use this one. Oh yeah, don't be afraid to experiment. And what I mean by that is go into the filter and make each layer a little different, so that way they don't look like direct copies from each other. However, I just noticed if I apply wave on it again, it'll make it look like super wavy, like the little detailed lines in it. So I'm going to try using something else, like maybe polar coordinates. Yeah. There we go. Control T. Alright. Next we're going to be using gradients again. And the transparent gradient even. But first we gotta use the Elliptical Marquee tool. That's going to be underneath the selection tool. And for you, it's probably a rectangular Marquee tool. All you do is you left click it. Left click it and hold on to it. And then an option box will appear, and then just hit Elliptical Marquee tool. And universally, when you hold shift, it maintains a ratio size for like whatever you're using. Like if you're using crop box or Marquee tool like we're using right now, or transform tool. For example, right now I'm creating a circle and I'm holding shift to maintain it as a circle. And next we're going to use the layer adjustment tool, like right here in the layer menu, and we're going to choose gradient. And so here's another time to decide a color. I like yellow. You can see that in her iris there is some yellow. That's because it's blue and red, which can follow the triad color scheme, which is 3 colors in equal distance from each other that kind of make like a Y. I'll show you in a little bit. But anyways, we want to select radial under style. And then we're going to want to choose reverse. And under gradient, we're going to want to choose the preset that has the transparent. And then here's 2 swatches. We're going to select the swatch that has the color available, and I'm going to choose yellow. Next, we're going to drag the swatch a little bit to the right or left, depending on where it is. And then what I did is I just clicked on below where the gradient's shown, and that creates another swatch. And I'm going to make that a little white. And that looks good. If it's not like smooth like that, like let's say this is a little closer, you could kind of see like it's a little blockier. You spread them apart a little bit, and then it's more of a gradual change. And then I'm just going to hit OK. Alright, this step is a little difficult. I always find that if I'm not careful, that it's gonna be a little overpowering of an effect. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this layer a couple times, and on the copies of the layers, we're going to make them smaller and kind of create an interesting composition for the effect. So here, I'll show you. So first I'm going to make this smaller because it's a little too big for the canvas. So something like this. Now Control J, making a copy. Control T, making it smaller. Then Control J again. Gonna make it smaller. Oops. I released the shift button too early. Okay, so I'm gonna have to manually fix it. It's not going back. There we go. Okay. You know what? I think it's still too big. This original circle. Yeah, there we go. That looks nice. There. Now I'm going to combine these three layers. Whoops. I select the layer mask there. Alright, so you see here in the layer window, I'm holding shift, then I'm selecting all three of these layers. And then I'm going to hit Control E, and that combines all three of them. And now I'm going to hit Control J. Then Control T and rotate it. Then Control J, Control T. Oh man, I keep on messing up on that. 67 by 67. There we go. Alright, cool. Now I'm going to combine them using the same method as before. And I'm going to put that below the foreground elements that we added. There we go. Next, we're going to go to Filter, Distort. This is completely optional, by the way. You don't have to do this. And also, you can leave some of the circles to be circles. So yeah, actually, before I apply that, just Control Z, Control J, then Control F. There we go. Control J. Alright, and right now the background is white. However, following the color scheme, we're going to add some blue. I already had the swatch selected right here for dark blue. But the dark blue is a little plain for me. So like I was mentioning, I didn't really like the background, so through some experimenting, I came up with this, and all it is I duplicated the stained glass layer a couple times, and I set it to multiply, or actually darken, and I put a blue gradient on the background, and we got this so far. Next, I'm gonna add some white because Kyogre has some white right there on her hair, and also in the original Pokemon too, which is gonna add some interesting aesthetics to it. So here I'm gonna select the wand tool, pick out, oh, hold on. Oh, hold on. Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm going to want to deselect the foreground and just go and pick. Alright, next I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to choose the paint bucket tool, pick white, and just, oh, what happened here? I thought I picked white. I guess at the last second I dragged a little too much downward. There we go. And I'm going to make a copy of this too, because I'm going to use this in the background. So a couple of things that I did during that little session where I fast forwarded it is I gave some glow to the little white portions of the stained glass, and I also used the Liquify tool on some of these gradients of the yellow, so that way they don't look like complete carbon copies of each other. That way it doesn't, repeat itself too much. So in order to do that, it's really easy. So all I did is I got the white layer and I copied it. And then I went to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and set it to 4. And that's all you gotta do. Then as for the Liquify tool, all I did is I went to one of the gradient layers, and I went to Filter, Liquify, and using the forward wrap tool, which is what is originally selected, I just moved it around. And you want it to be on a brush size that gives you some control. So I don't know, like something like maybe 70 in this example. And then brush pressure 100. And it does that to it. But I already did all that. The reason why I fast forward is because I really just wanted to not take up too much time in this process where I just kind of try to feel where it would be good to place. And right now I feel it's too bright. So we're going to do another lapse where I just kind of cut it out and just do some fast forwarding through my process. Actually, I'm just going to skip to the finished product. I added a couple effects which I'm just going to go over really quick. So I decided that the render seemed a little out of place considering the color of the background, so I made her darker. All I did is I went to adjustment layers, went to selective color, and under the blue hue I bumped it all the way up to the highest black that it could be. and did the same with the cyan. And in order to have it affect only the render, I would have to clip it onto the layer of the render. As you can see, there's a little arrow that's pointing to it. And the way that you do that is that you use, while it's placed on top of it, hold on, there we go. While it's placed on top of it, you have to hit Control-Alt-G. This option can also be found over in Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and it attaches to it. And I also applied another one. I applied another selective color layer, and I set it under luminosity, and same settings like before, except under blue and cyan I just cranked it all the way up. That way it really darkens that blue. So in yours, you don't have to follow this step. I mean, it's very specific to this render, but it's just something that is worth knowing for later, in case if you ever run into something like this. Like, let's say if there's reds that you want to mess with, like here, you can just, mess with it. Get it to something that you like. You know what? I just noticed that the red isn't as red as it was before. So by bumping up the magenta, it made it more of a darker red. There we go. Wow. Yeah, much better. I didn't even notice that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see. Alright. And then another thing that I did is I sharpened a lot of the gradients. And all you need to do that is go to Filter, Sharpen, and Sharpen. That's it. That way they stick out a little bit more. And as for the background stained glass here, I completely blurred it. And I also added some blue to some of the spots here. As you can see, it was very bright before, and with this blue, it kind of toned it down, added some shades to it. And then there is these yellow little dots. That is done by using dissolve and some airbrushing. So this is what the layer looks like before it was set to dissolve. And to make this, all I did is I went to brush, set it to one of these soft brushes. These are the ones that look like gradients, and set the opacity low, and then just brushed in with some yellow. And then I set it down to dissolve and put it to 3%. And I also used the clipping mask. Hold on, let me see if I could disable, add, delete. How do I do this? Oh yeah, Control. No, not Control, Alt. There we go. So I also erased some of the yellow using the clipping mask, and all I did is I added this here, this add vector mask, and what that does is when you brush in black, it erases some of the yellow. So that way I was able to control it a little better. And then I added some lighting, and the way I did that is I used the gradient tool and picked the preset for transparency and picked the foreground white. And then using a new layer, I just dragged it and went to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, so that way it softens it a little bit more. You're gonna probably want a smaller gradient, so I'm gonna make it a little higher, because I'm just going off of the render. You can obviously see that the light is coming from this direction, like right over here, right? So that's why I added it here. And then I added some dark blue around the corners. to kind of bring out the render more. And that's all I did. The dark blue was done with soft brushing and just 48% to control it, and that's it. So now that we got the finished product, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to Control A, Shift C, Control V, and that makes a single layer. And then using a business card template, which I will provide for you guys, you just want to align your signature to these boxes here. Since it is full bleed, you're going to want to space them out after aligning them. Or you can keep them like that as long as you got a precision cutter. It's a lot easier using Office though. If you have a business card template on there, what it does is it just asks you to use your image and fill it within the parameters of a business card resolution or dimensions, and then from there it will create the spacing for you. But for the sake of just using Photoshop, I will show you how to do that using Photoshop. So just dragging it on there. Then holding spacebar so I can get this hand here, which allows me to drag the screen like so. Hold on, gotta use my mouse for this. There we go. Okay. So all you're gonna want to do is make sure it is right there. Control J. And then since we got two, I'm going to combine them together to save myself some work. And just hit Control J and bring it down using the arrow key, or bring it down holding Shift using the pointer tool and just dragging it down. Spacebar. Okay, dragging it down. Whoops. There we go. And Control E. Oh yeah, gotta make a copy. To Control J. Then all you do is you print this out, cut it out, and then you're done. So I went ahead and printed it, and this is an example of what you will get. Let's see once it focuses a little bit more. You can put that into your wallet, give some to your friends. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found out some new techniques today and that this was informative. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe and watch my other videos. I have a video on here about a more personal nature, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and watch it. Alright, until next time, bye.